this workshop, I think I'd like to take the chance to ask to thank the organizers. Thanks a lot, Bernard, and particular thanks to Lynn, who always does a great job on organizing these things. So you're all happy to have her. And a short comment on, or referring to the previous talk, I can also recommend doing some interactions with school kids at whatever there is offered, maybe from your institution or the country you live in. This is always a very nice experience. And even if maybe it's not your mother tongue, that's fine as well, as long as you can express yourself a little bit. The kids there, they find this, they're happy to see this as well. Okay. Yeah, I don't see Kash, who proposed I should talk longer, and now it looks like he's enjoying the sun as well. Okay. But yes, I suggest that we don't I don't let this take too long, and we'll enjoy the sun afterwards as well. What I'll talk about is I call it a posteriori positivity certificates from POEMA. I try to complement on Ettore talk. Some things will be redundant. I hope you don't mind, and sometimes it's useful to hear it twice. But before coming to them, I'd like to talk shortly about what brought me to POEMA. Very shortly, I was particularly interested in lifts that linearize nonlinear problems, and we've seen one already. This was polynomial optimization, where we started with a polynomial optimization problem, and then we formulated it on measures, and it suddenly became linear. And this is something I found very intriguing. I've seen there's also another variant, the two-pan operator. Just advertises that this does a similar thing for dynamical systems. We start with a nonlinear dynamical system and embed it into, let's say, measures, and suddenly it becomes linear. And yeah, I find this very beautiful, because it has nice properties. So we can apply all the linear machinery, and some things that are that can be seen here were, I mean, were some of the POEMA topics. I mean, optimization, efficiency. It talks on moments because it was lifting. Yeah, of course, there's still always problems. So easily gets infinite dimensional, and maybe it will be a relaxation. Maybe some of you will have similar tasks to compete with. I hope you enjoy this. But sometimes linearity is not enough, and this is where I would like to do a transition to planars. So, for instance, if we look at robust polynomial optimization, where let's say we want to optimize a polynomial, but we are not precisely sure how exactly it looks like. Maybe it just comes from a model, and we got some data and built the model for our polynomial. We want to optimize something that is maybe close to f, but we don't know it explicitly. And if we do the same lifting trick, then we end up with something that is now bilinear, because it has this measure mu over which we optimize, and also the polynomial f tilde, which is close in some sense to our model. So here we end up with something bilinear. Similarly, in control theory, if one is interested in so-called control Lyapunov functions, or if two functions f and g are given describing the dynamics somehow, then there are cases where I'm interested in finding a function v, so-called Lyapunov function of control u, such that here a non-positivity condition is satisfied. But there's also the problem that there's a bilinear term that appears. Yeah, so here the linear structure that I found so nice in the previous part doesn't persist anymore. So here maybe tensors is one way to address this. And if so, that would be nice. But I'll hand this to you. So if something in that direction will be done throughout your coming years. I'm very curious about this. And speaking of embedding into tensors, I like to speak about embedding into tenors. And I guess for you that means you start you become a part of a new network, you meet new students in there. You have a supervisor or many supervisors. There are many researchers around you, and you also start in a new institution. At least at some point during the program, you'll be in a new country. And you also, of course, it means you start a new position. Maybe if you transition directly from your studies to a PhD, then this will be something new. It's something exciting. Yeah. And yeah, for some of you, maybe there's also a transition of the field. Maybe now you do something else that what you've done before. And I'd like to talk a little bit about this first from my perspective. So how it was for me or for some of us from the POEMA workshop, from the POEMA network, which almost up to the date, I think started like 5 years ago when we had our first workshop. Okay, so how was this in my case? We were not called DCs, we were called ESRs, and we were also labeled ESR 1 to ESR 15. Then we got names. And okay, so I knew that Andrew Ferguson was Andrew Ferguson, but then shortly after, luckily he was called only Andrew. And yeah, so same for the rest. And I also got to know the others, so I knew how they look like. And now, a few years later, there have been more than names now. With some of them, I am friends with. For some of them, I know if I have a question in real algebraic geometry, I know I'd send a message to Lorenzo and we get in contact. And yeah, there were some links created throughout this program, which I'm very thankful of. Next part was from a lift from a supervisor to a mentor. So here I talk about my boss at the time, Milan Korda, who for administrative reasons couldn't make it. Yeah, so on top of being my supervisor and in math, I'd say he also taught me different things. For instance, we went on a skiing trip. I'm sure that he would say one of his big achievements was that he introduced me to climbing. I'm not so sure if I agree that much, but yeah, there's certainly you can certainly learn more than only math from your supervisors. And another thing that I found very nice in the POEMA network, which is very similar in Tenors, is that it provides a very nice network of experts, which are very approachable. They're also responsive if you have questions. Here, you can just ask them to go to a whiteboard and they probably won't say no. They're also very friendly. And similarly to emails, here I also recommend taking this opportunity that this is a diverse field of people who are talking a similar language. And if you have a question or an idea and it relates to something that someone in the network is working with, then reach out. And they're really nice people. So this is I also always had the feeling that it's okay if I ask, it's okay if I approach them. Now let's turn to Tenors. So what do I think, how can this look like in general? It's stepping back from my personal case. Let's start with embedding into a network with other students, supervisors, institutions, and researchers. First, I think it's a good idea to turn your DCs into persons and colleagues. That means get to know each other. I've seen you talking a lot, and this is very natural, and I think this is important. Another part is you can form reading groups, for instance. I think this is also something nice and helpful. And what also is good, once you know each other, you know each other's expertise. And if you have a question on a related field and you know, oh, DC7, you might even know the name by then, is an expert on this field, then just reach out, and this typically both sides are happy. Okay, but here go ahead and find your own ways of connecting to each other. For the step transitioning from supervisors to mentors, of course, this is very much based also on the math you're doing. But I suggest reach out to your supervisor when you feel like you need to discuss something or you need help on anything. This does not only concern your work. Sometimes it's also administrative things. It's sometimes good to just ask someone who knows where to send you to. Maybe your boss is not the great administrator either, but typically they know the person who handles this well. Okay, and a second part that I find nice is, of course, you will learn a lot from your supervisors, and you'll have good guidance. But at some point, you can make them learn something too. And this moment will come once when you read a very nice paper that maybe they weren't aware of, or there's a nice idea that comes up. This is also bi-directional. Yeah. Something not to forget. Okay, and lastly, for the Institute and the Tenors Network, here also I recommend you just get in contact and participate in the things that are proposed, like the workshops. This is a very nice opportunity because you'll see each other again. I mean, not that frequently, but there will be other workshops, and this is not so typical that you see the same amount of people in such a group that often in other programs. Next part, embedding into a new country. Okay. Oh, and if there are questions, just go ahead. There'll also be a room, of course, in the end, but if you have questions, urgent questions or not so urgent questions, please intervene. Okay. Otherwise, I continue with the next part. So, how it is to arrive in a new country. And here I don't say much. I show just the pictures, like one of those Rorschach tests. I think this is because this is a very individual experience and with a big diversity. So being in a new country, you can see in there whatever you want to see. But this is also something very nice that Tenos offers. You spend some time in a country, I think, what was it, about a year, which is time which allows you to get to know and get in contact with the culture there. Yeah, I think this is also something very particular and something you can be happy about. This will be a nice experience. And another good thing about this picture is that I found it looked like the following illustration of a strange attractor, which came across my time during my time in the POEMA network. And here, another advertisement. A beautiful thing that occurs. Okay. For the next point, I have some mentionings about what it might mean for you to start a new position and how one can look at some things. For instance, I think if you start a new topic, particularly, but in any case, at the beginning, take time and read and understand the field. I don't think you need to feel pressured here, and do this in a way that sounds suitable for you. For some, this is following some books. For some, it's some lecture notes. Some like to discuss this a bit more with colleagues. Just learn about the field, enjoy this time, and and don't be too hectic. There's time, and it's important to digest the things well. And secondly, your supervisor has a broad overview, and this guidance can, particularly at the beginning, be very helpful. Leverage this. Ask for text to look at. Ask for which problems might be interesting. Yeah, but this is something that happens dynamically. suggest that reaching out. Here about this part we already talked, that at some point you can also teach your supervisor something. And here the last part, take opportunities to discuss and to exchange, and this includes not only people in your network, but I mean the people you're surrounded with. That means the colleagues in your lab. I think this is something natural, but I also Ettore emphasize this. It's good to do so. You get new perspectives, you get new ideas. Maybe you'll learn the stuff a bit better once you explain it to someone else. And it's also fun. And it doesn't always need to be mathematical. If your institute has whatever new students arrival party evening, then participating there can be something nice. Or yourself taking the position of organizing such things for others. Maybe not at the beginning, but maybe at some time you feel like, okay, this is something I could do for the new arrivals. Then why not take those opportunities if you feel like it's always beneficial for both sides. Then starting with a possibly new field, this is not very different from changing a new position, I would say. Here, the first part is the same. Try to understand a new field. Take your time. Don't feel pressured. As we also talked about this. And here, if you change your field, then I think there's something very interesting happening. Namely, you have previous expertise which differs from what you learn now. And at some point, this can be leveraged in two senses. Either you can bring in new perspectives to the field you're looking at, or maybe you learn a new technique and you realize, oh, this might be applicable to a problem that I've seen before in this different field. And whenever something like this happens, this is very, very fruitful, and it's good to look out for these moments, and they're particularly joyful. And even more, if you start something new, take your time and don't rush too much. That's all right. Okay. And for the final part, I'd like to connect it back to some hints that I'd say in our experience in the POEMA network that we'd like to hand over to you guys. POEMA stands for Polynomial Optimization, Efficiency Through Moments in Algebra. So I tried to partition this last part into the following 5 parts. First, for the polynomial part, I call it identifying the variables. For the optimization part, I look at positivity certificates, what meant that something was going well. The efficiency part, leveraging structure inside the network, for instance. For the moment part, as I'm rephrasing a comic that I've seen on Jean Bernard's office, someone screaming SOS, and the response is a moment, please. And of course, he was referring this to polynomial optimization. And here I like to address a little bit the question of what to do if you feel like something is not going well before finishing with the algebraic part, which I call or relation to, I call it variety. Okay, so let's start with identifying the variables. So what do I mean by this? I'd say be patient with things you cannot change, and this mostly addresses administration. For instance, if housing and social security and bank accounts and the things that your institute requires you to fill out and so on, if sometimes these processes are slow, it's good to be after them, but often it's difficult to change them fundamentally. Even if you think, this is a bit strange that I have to send the same thing 3 times. Okay, sometimes this is how it goes. But since you started, you're able to managed to do a big part of this already. So these are good news. Something to watch out for are visa restrictions. I think this is good to look after them early. So if you think you might have visa restrictions, which might concern conferences, workshops, or visits in other countries, yeah, it's good to check this early, because it's always said, if just because of the visa, it won't be able for you to go to a conference, and sometimes those visa processes they take some time. So I really hope this will work out well for you guys, because it's very sad if it doesn't, because of the visa reasons. But here the good news is, if you're after it in time, the things work out. And for things that are less on a governmental scale, like here, there's always someone in your institute or someone you know that was in a similar situation, and this can be of help. So, don't hesitate to ask. There's always someone who knows how to fill out the text sheet and so on, and they're often also very helpful and kind. So just ask them, and typically you'll get some good advice. Okay, now we've identified the variables. Now it's the leveraged structure. So here I've drawn 15 dots, and they could be called DCs or ESRs, and certainly there are some interconnections between them. Maybe this might be because they share an interest in non-commutative algebra, or whatever this might be. Maybe those here, they're big movie fans, but this is something you could leverage. So, and I hope this is visible. They have different colors. So this is something where you could build where you could form some subgroups, which can take forms of reading groups, for instance. Maybe the non-commutative algebra people, they like to meet every 2 weeks for discussing a paper they read together, something like this. This is something I encourage you to do. This is very nice. It connects you, and it'll help, and it's very joyful as well. Okay, so it's here, so you can form reading groups. You can also have presentation rehearsals, for instance. I also think that this is something helpful to do. Have a feedback from your peers before doing an official talk somewhere, and where it's also important to be a bit honest. It's okay to make some errors at the beginning. That's what rehearsal talks are for. So I recommend as well. And what we did, we also had online board games. This was maybe due to because it was the COVID period, but also this I found was something nice to stay a bit in contact, even between the workshops and the events organized by Tina. Yeah. What else do I consider leveraging structure is that you have different backgrounds. I mean, I've said this already. You have different expertise. This is nice, but also cultural background. So this is a very nice moment of just learning about new cultures as well. I think there's also rich value in this. Okay, and lastly, you're in a very similar situation. You start them out at the same time. You'll have relatable problems. You'll have relatable success. This is something you share, and I guess this is something that will connect you. So also just embrace this if you feel like it. Okay. And now that structure is leveraged, let's look at the optimization part. Oh, this I forgot. Ito also talked about this, the funding. Tenors has very nice funding, so you're privileged in the sense that there are more opportunities than many other PhD students have. So yeah, discuss with your supervisors if if you can go to certain workshops that are of your interest, or if you can visit a group or go to summer schools, this is really, they're really nice opportunities that you can catch. Okay, and the rich variety of expertise in the field I've also mentioned already. Another redundant fact, but introduces robustness. Now to positivity certificates. What? Okay, unfortunately, there's no square in here. Sorry, Didier. Yeah, so a few. I think they're very evident, but I still put them here. Things that I think certified that things were going well in my situation, but I think this is also generalized. So clearly, if you enjoy what you're doing, this is a good sign. If you have regular meetings and you don't feel lost, also a good sign. If you get input and feedback, very good. If it's good input and feedback, even better. If you have regular exchange with, this could be your lab mates or other colleagues and your supervisor, whoever. And lastly, if you're healthy. Yeah. And these points are very self-explanatory. So what is written on the right is basically what's written on the left. But I think this is something, I mean, it's clear, but maybe not bad to state. And but what is maybe important to mention is that this provides a positivity certificate if it applies simultaneously. Okay. So if one of these things is not going well, yeah, then it's a good moment to trying to adapt. And this also brings me to the question of infeasibility certificates. So what to do if you think something is not going well? I think this is also something important to talk about. For instance, if you ask yourself the question, is everything okay? Then maybe this is already an indicator that it's good to think a little bit more about this question. It doesn't mean it's a bad situation. I think it's just a good moment to to consider what's going on. And okay, first part. I also hear there's no magic. How do you know, or how do you ask yourself the question if everything is okay? Yeah, you ask yourself, am I doing fine? What do I think is going well? What do I think is not going well? Is this something temporary? Is it only for 1 or 2 weeks that I need to focus on a lot because there's a deadline? Or is this something where I feel like this might take a longer time and I don't see the end so well? And what you want to be different? I mean, I guess very, very natural questions to ask. And once you've listened to yourself, you can also listen to your peers. So what are their situations? What are their takes on the situation? What do you think? What do they think? How should it be? What do you think? What do you think you could take from their situation that you would like to have in yours as well? And here the people from the POEMA network, we proposed our emails. Lynn has them. So in case you have any questions on these, and it's natural to have them at some point, I guess everyone has a moment where I think, oh, what's happening right now? Maybe Toby also talked about this. I feel like there's no progress at the moment, and sometimes it feels a bit stressful. Yeah, sometimes this situation is very normal, and in a few cases, the whole situation is maybe not a good situation. So yeah, if needed, take actions, and whatever this could be contacting us or whoever, or talking to families and friends. It's comforting to see what they think because they know well. And it's also important to inform your supervisors. I know that this is sometimes not easy. If you think there's an issue, then this requires courage. Yeah, but I think it's something that should be said, because if one waits, I mean, if waiting too long typically doesn't make the thing better. Yes. And particularly if there's a problem in the communication, maybe if there is communication missing between you and someone, maybe your supervisor, then it's good not to continue by not talking about this. Yeah. So yeah, I think this is a very subtle part, and this is difficult, but I think it's also there are situations where this is important. Okay, but I don't want to end like this. This sounds very negative. Your time, I'm sure, will also be very exciting, and not also your time will be exciting, and there's much joy. So this is what I call variety. There will be much variety and real in the sense that there's a variety that really exists. So I wish you to enjoy this and have great coming years. And with this, I would like to say thank you and good luck in the languages that I hope I've written the good luck phrase in all the languages that are represented in the Tenors network. So I hope you somehow you see the phrase that catches you. And yeah, with this now, if there are some questions, please go ahead. And thanks. Oh, and something before I forget. This is also good to keep track of certificates of workshops, or also a certificate maybe for the ethics talk that you just heard, because your doctoral schools, they might require at some point that you have proof of attendance at several workshops. So better start this right away. Normally, Lynn keeps you well informed and sends you all the things. But knowing from my case, it's also easy to lose those sheets, and organizing you within this task early on and properly is also something that will be helpful. No. Okay. Yeah.
Question: why we call it PSRs?
It was this stood for early student researcher, and I would like to return the question. Early stage. Sorry, yes. And I would like to return the question. What does DC stand for? Okay. All right. Yeah.
How was the keeping up of time sheets with results? How was the sending? I know we have time sheets. Did you also have
time sheets?
Yes, we have to.
I
hope I'm not the only one, but yeah, it's not university specific or no, it was specifically for the tennis project. But maybe it's itself by No, you are not alone. Yeah. Okay. You see, it's fine. Yeah, it's your publication, your workshop, your plan.
Okay. You don't talk about a weekly schedule. Okay. For the working hours. Okay, there I don't know, but in for such questions, the master is certainly.
Thanks. Maybe this may be a bad question to end on a downer, but like you talked about these infeasibility criteria. So how do I phrase it? What was did POEMA had 100% survival rate, or was there some? Did someone run into some problems?
No, there was not 100%. I wouldn't call it survival rate, because okay, one had to leave early, but for the other, I'm friends with him, and he's doing fine. So he just took a different path.
So the survival rate is still.
So let's say survival rate, I think is 100%. But and I also don't want to call it succession rate. I guess I think he's also successful in what he's doing now. But not everyone who started finished with a PhD. I think there were two that didn't.